Okay, so today we're going to dive into SoFi Technologies.
Right.
And this is a really interesting time to do it. The Nasdaq's taken a bit of a dip recently, and we've got an article here titled SoFi Technologies, Wachstumschancen trotz Marktkorrektur.
Growth opportunities despite market correction.
There you go. You're much better with the German than I am.
Well, I try.
So, but it brings up this question of, what's really going on with SoFi, right?
Yeah.
The stock's down, the market's down, but the article seems to be saying there might be more to the story.
Right. It's like, are we just seeing, a general market trend, or is there something specific about SoFi that we need to unpack here? And I think that's that's our mission today, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I want to know, is this a buying opportunity?
Right.
Or is this, is there something we should be worried about?
Right. Are we looking at a value trap or a genuine value play?
Exactly.
So I guess just for context, the article does point out that the Nasdaq has dipped quite a bit, like around 14% recently.
Oh, wow. So we're actually in correction territory.
Yeah, officially. And so when that happens, it can create some interesting opportunities.
Oh, absolutely, especially for long-term investors.
Yeah. Those who are looking for, a little bit of a bargain and willing to ride out the storm.
Because everything gets pulled down with it.
Right. The good and the bad sometimes.
So even solid companies, their stocks might dip just because the whole market's going down.
Right, exactly. And I think that's, maybe part of what we're seeing with SoFi, because the article highlights that their stock has actually dropped even more than the Nasdaq. Like over the past 6 weeks, it's down more than a third of its value.
Oh, wow. That's a significant drop.
It is, yeah. And, that's got to make you wonder what's going on, right?
Yeah, is it just the market or is it something else?
All right.
So what's the article say?
Well, that's where it gets interesting, because they encourage us to kind of look beyond the stock price for a minute.
I think that's always a good idea.
And focus on the actual business performance. And when you do that, the picture is actually pretty positive.
Okay, so what are we seeing?
Well, 2024 was a record year for them. They hit an all-time high in revenue with a growth rate of 26%.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, especially in a space like fintech where things are maturing. To still be seeing that kind of growth is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's not like there's some brand new startup, right?
Right, exactly.
They've been around for a while.
So to see that kind of sustained growth is, that's a good sign.
Absolutely.
And it's not just the revenue. They're adjusted EBITDA, adjusted earnings per share, net income. All those hit record highs too.
Okay, so they're actually making money.
Yeah, and this is significant because it's their first full year of profitability, which, for a company that's often been talked about in terms of its potential, to actually see them hit that profitability milestone, it's a pretty big deal.
Huge. Yeah, I mean, it kind of validates their business model.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, okay, they're not just, burning through cash anymore.
Right. They're proving that they can actually generate sustainable profits.
Exactly. So the article also talks about their tangible book value, right?
Yeah, and that's another interesting metric. It basically represents the company's net asset value, excluding intangible assets.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty impressive jump too, like 39% in 2024.
Okay, so their core financial strength is growing.
Exactly.
Okay, and what about their user base, their membership?
Yeah, that's another area where they're seeing a lot of growth. They ended 2024 with 10.1 million members.
Whoa, 10 million people using SoFi.
Yeah, and it's a 34% increase from the previous year.
Wow, so they're clearly attracting new customers.
Yeah, and keeping them engaged, which is, just as important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think one thing that's particularly interesting is their deposit growth. They reached $25 billion in deposits.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. And remember, they only got their banking charter in 2022.
Right, so that's a pretty rapid accumulation of deposits.
It is, and I think it really speaks to the trust that people are putting in SoFi, as a place to keep their money.
Yeah, they're becoming a more like a legitimate banking institution.
Right, exactly.
Not just a fintech app.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so far it sounds like the business itself is actually doing really well.
Yeah, the fundamentals seem strong.
So then what's driving the growth? Like what's the secret sauce here?
Well, the article highlights a few key areas. One is the scaling of their loan platform business.
Okay, so they're making loans.
Yeah, but it's not just about making loans to hold on their own books. They're also originating loans for third-party lenders and acting as a referral source.
Oh, interesting. So they're kind of like a middleman in some cases?
Yeah, exactly. And that allows them to generate income through fees without having to carry all the capital risks themselves.
Oh, that's smart. So it's a more capital light approach.
Exactly.
It's lower risk, but they can still participate in the growth of the lending market.
Right.
Interesting.
And then there's their Galileo technology platform.
Okay, tell me about Galileo.
So this is their tech infrastructure, and it's been growing really rapidly. And one of the biggest things that's happened recently is they secured a deal to process payments for the Direct Express federal benefits program.
Oh, wow, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's huge. It basically means that their technology is going to be used to distribute benefits to millions of people.
So it's like a major vote of confidence in their platform.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it also opens up a whole new market for them, right? The
Yes.
government?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and then the article also talks about their credit card business, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's another area where they're really starting to expand. They launched 2 new cards in the fourth quarter of last year, the SoFi Everyday Cash Rewards and the SoFi Essential.
Oh, I saw those advertised.
Yeah, so they're clearly trying to become a more comprehensive financial hub for their members.
Right, so you can do everything through SoFi.
Exactly. And one thing the article points out is that SoFi has a relatively affluent member base.
Okay, so their customers tend to have more money.
Yeah, which means that there's a big opportunity for them to introduce more premium or travel-focused credit cards.
Oh, yeah, those cards that come with all the perks and the higher annual fees.
Exactly.
And those tend to be more profitable for the issuer, right?
They are, yeah. So that's a potentially lucrative area for SoFi to expand into.
So it sounds like they've got a lot of different growth levers to pull.
Yeah, they're not just a one-trick pony.
But what are they saying about their future performance? Like, what's their own guidance?
So for 2025, they're projecting revenue growth of around 25%.
Okay, so still strong growth.
Yeah, and they're expecting even faster growth in earnings per share, like around 73%.
Wow, that's pretty aggressive.
It is, but, it's worth noting that they have a history of exceeding their own guidance.
Oh, so they tend to underpromise and overdeliver.
Yeah, which I guess is a good problem to have.
Absolutely. It gives you more confidence in their projections.
Right.
So, okay, we've talked about their strong performance, their growth drivers, their future outlook.
Yeah.
It all seems pretty positive, but their stock is down significantly.
Right, that's the big question, right? What's the disconnect?
Exactly.
And the article kind of emphasizes this. Their CEO, Anthony Noto, actually said back in January that they had their best year ever.
Right, so their earnings call was really positive.
Yeah, but since then, the stock's dropped like 33%.
Yeah, it's kind of baffling.
It is. And the article points out that there hasn't really been any negative news since then to justify that kind of drop.
Right, there's been no scandals, no big missteps.
No, actually, it's been the opposite. Like, there's been some positive developments since the earnings report.
Okay, so tell me about those.
Well, for example, they've announced enhanced benefits for their SoFi Plus premium members.
Okay, so they're making their premium offering even more attractive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What else?
Galileo is now enabling co-branded debit rewards cards.
Okay, so they're partnering with other companies to offer rewards programs?
Yeah, which, could be a win-win for everyone involved.
Yeah, definitely. For SoFi, for their partners, and for the customers.
Right.
Okay, what else?
They also completed a securitization of nearly $700 million in personal loans.
Oh, okay. So they're managing your risk and freeing up capital.
Exactly.
Smart.
And then there's this external factor that the article mentions, which is kind of interesting. The Trump administration has been taking a certain stance on federal student loan programs.
Yeah.
And depending on how those policies evolve, it could actually be a tailwind for SoFi's student loan refinancing business.
Oh, interesting. So some of their older business lines could actually benefit from these policy changes.
Right, potentially.
Okay, so we've talked about all the positive stuff, but obviously no investment is without risk.
Right, and the article does acknowledge that.
So what are some of the potential risks that investors should be aware of?
Well, one of the big ones is an economic slowdown, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's always a risk.
If the economy weakens, it could impact loan demand and potentially lead to higher consumer default rates.
Right, so their lending business could suffer.
Yeah, and that's something that would affect any lending institution, not just SoFi.
Right, it's a macro risk.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've looked at SoFi's strong performance, their growth drivers, their future outlook, the disconnect between their business and their stock price, and the potential risks.
Right.
So what's the big takeaway here?
Well, I think for me, it's that while the market has been kind of freaking out about SoFi, the underlying business seems to be doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, all the metrics we talked about are pointing in the right direction.
Exactly. They're growing, they're profitable, they're expanding into new areas, they're managing their risk.
So it seems like the stock price might not be reflecting the true value of the company.
Yeah, I think that's a very real possibility.
So for investors who are looking for a bargain, this might actually be a good opportunity to take a closer look at SoFi.
Yeah, I mean, if they can keep up this momentum, the current stock price could represent a significant discount.
Definitely something to consider.
And, it makes you think about the future, right? SoFi is growing so rapidly. They're expanding into so many different areas of finance.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to be the biggest driver of their success going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And how's that going to change the financial landscape for their members, the people who are actually using SoFi?
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be watching this company.
It is.
And I think this deep dive has given us a lot to think about.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
All right, we'll see you next time.
See you later.